Hello dear subscribers and watchers, what's up? This is Vivs from SlideNote here. In this video, I'm going to talk about how we can read data from different places in your storage. That is from internal cache, external file which is private, and an external file which is public in nature. So in the last video, I was talking about how to save data. Here, let's talk about how to read. So once again, let me just walk you through what we have here. It's activity underscore second.xml. This is the activity where we are going to be reading data. There are 4 buttons out here. They're going to call 4 different methods in your second activity.java. Load internal cache, private external file, and public external file. So let's start with the load internal cache method. Again, there are certain things that are going to be common among all these 4 methods, and that will be the actual file input stream API which tries to read data from each of these 4 different places. So I'm going to make a method private void read data, and this method is going to be only concerned with how to read data. So here I'm going to have a file argument by saying file my file, something like this, and then here we're going to use a file input stream which is actually responsible for reading data in Java. I'm going to say file input stream is new file input stream. Create the file input stream to read data from that particular file that we have passed in the parameter, that is my file. I should not be initializing this directly, so I'll make it null in the first place, and then going down I'll say file input stream equals to new file input stream. And the reason why I do this is because this step throws an exception. What it says is unhandled exception, file not found exception must be handled. Now if you try to read from a file that doesn't exist, there might be an exception called file not found exception, hence to surround this with try catch, and then that takes care of one step. Now let me see how to read it. I'm going to say file input stream dot read. Again, as you guys notice, there are certain read methods here: read byte buffer, and stuff like that. Now there is no direct way to read string over here. What I can do is use a reader or reader API to do that, but I'm not doing that. I'll do something else instead. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a variable here, int read equals to -1, which means, well, nothing was read. Basically, I'm gonna say read equals to file input stream dot read. How does this work? Now file input stream dot read returns the ASCII value of the character that was read. If no character was found inside the file, it returns a -1. So I want to keep reading as long as this read value is not -1. So let me put this entire thing inside a parentheses, and then I'm going to make a while loop outside it. I'm going to say while read equals to file input stream dot read not equals -1. So this looks a pretty nasty expression if you guys are looking at this, and you guys are wondering how this runs. Now take a look. This parentheses is going to run first. That means the value file input stream dot read will execute. If A is found inside, it will return 65. That will go inside read, and read is not equal, that is 65 is not equals to -1, and hence this loop will continue. However, when you reach the end of the file, this is going to return -1, which will make read equals to -1, and this complete expression will have a value of -1. Since -1 not equals to -1 is not true, while loop will stop, and that's how this works. Again, there's a possibility of an exception here. I'll say control 1 and add a catch clause, IO exception. Now while reading again, there might be a problem like your device shuts down or something goes wrong, hence you need to take care of that. Now I'll use a string buffer to append all the data I just read. So I'm going to say string buffer is new string buffer. For those of you who are new to this, you know very well a string buffer is a special type of string in Java that can be modified. So I'm going to say string buffer dot append. I'm going to add each and every character that I just read. If you guys remember, the data is stored inside this variable read over here, so I'm going to append that. But this actually appends just the ASCII value, or in short, if you have ABCD inside the file, this read is going to contain something like 65, 66, 67, 68. What we want is characters, so let me typecast this to char over here, and then what you guys are going to be seeing is A, B, C, D, and that's how things work. And now at this point, what I want to do is return this data. So I'm going to say a return type of string here, and simply return that string from here by saying return string buffer, which is actually a string buffer. Convert that to a string by saying dot to string, and that takes care of everything. Now if something does go wrong, what I want to do is return a null over here by simply saying return null. So in other words, anything else doesn't work, this is gonna return null. Now let me write a finally over here to close our file input stream, because It's just like a tap. You open an input stream means you're opening a connection with the file and trying to read data. So once you're done reading data, you want to ensure that you close that connection. So here I'm going to say file input stream dot close. Now there's again a small little sweet problem with this. At this point, if there is an error, then file input stream will remain null. So here when you go to finally and when you try to run this statement, trying to call a method close on a null object is gonna cause an exception and your app will crash. Hence you gotta make sure that you check if file input stream not equals null and then only perform this. Otherwise do not do this. At this point again there's a red line. Let's see what it is about. It says unhandled exception, IO exception. Now there is an exception that may arise while closing it, hence surround with try catch, and we are done with this. So at this point everything looks pretty good. We are returning some data here. If nothing works, we are returning a null over here, and that takes care of our read data method. Now let's see how to read the cache here. It's pretty simple and straightforward. First, get the directory that contains our cache, which is going to be cache dir. This is going to give me a file folder here. Inside this file folder, what I want is my file, which is inside the cache folder. I'm going to pass the first parameter as the directory, and inside that what I have is my data1.txt. It's just the same step which you guys saw in the previous video. In order for these other methods out here, I'm thinking of simply copy pasting it from the other class that we have, because that will avoid some typing work. And here what I'm gonna do is simply try to read data from this file, my data1.txt, which is contained inside the folder returned by get cache dir. So here I'm gonna simply say read data from my file. This is gonna give us a string here. I'm gonna say string data, something like this. Now we want to make sure that this data is not equal to null. If you guys remember, we are trying to return a null over here. So what I'm gonna do is put an if else condition here by saying if data not equals to null, then do something, otherwise do something. So in this case what I'm gonna do is find this edit text where I'm gonna display that value. I'm gonna say edit text dot set text, and that is gonna be our string data over here. Otherwise I'm gonna set an error over here saying no data was returned, something like that. And this pretty much takes care of everything. Now we just need to repeat this for the other methods: load external cache, load private external file, public external file. So let's just copy paste this and put it over here. In this case, for external cache, I just want to change the directory here by saying get external cache dir, and everything else remains the same except the file, which is my data2.txt in this case. So again, let me continue it over here. Now there is one bad thing I'm doing, and that is this if else condition being copy pasted everywhere. What I should actually do is make a separate method here that takes care of that, but right now I'm just too lazy for doing that, so I'll repeat my copy paste stuff. So load private external file. Here what I want to do is call get external files dir instead, and here specify the same folder that we used earlier. If you guys go back to our main activity.java, inside the save private external file I used a folder called slide nerd. Here inside my second activity I want to find data from that folder slide nerd itself, and here it's going to be my data3.txt. if you guys see it here, my data3, my data4, things were systematically meant right. So here that will read data from that file, and as you guys notice, this one simple method read data is actually simplifying a lot of work for us, right? You could further simplify it with this if else, of course. And here let me complete the last part. Here what I'm gonna say is get external storage public directory, which is inside environment class. I'm gonna say environment.get external storage public directory. Type would be environment.downloads, I believe. I'm not sure about it. Let me check it out. And the file was my data4.txt. So in this case, let's just go back and see if that was the folder. Environment.directory downloads. We saved the file to a folder directory downloads. Inside this file was my data4.txt. So while reading it, we gotta go to that folder downloads, and from there find the file my data4.txt, and then read the data, and this takes care of everything. So let's just run this and see if it works. I just hope it works. I'm not sure about this. If I say load external private, that data is loaded here. If I say load external public, that data is loaded here. If I say load from internal cache, what we have is nothing over here, and the reason is very simple. If I go to previous, I actually have saved nothing inside that file. So let me put something like nasty over here and put that inside our internal cache. So it says nasty was returned successfully to data here. So if I go to next here, and now at this point if I say load from internal cache, nasty is loaded. So let me go back and change some other pieces of data as well. I'm gonna put slide node here for the external public file. I'm gonna say external public here. So you guys notice slide node was returned successfully. Click next over here. And if I go back and say load external public, load slide node is working. So this means everything is working perfectly, and that is just great because I spent around 3 hours trying to figure out something wrong that was inside our external public directory. It was not making stuff, and now it's finally working. So I hope you guys have understood something about how the various storage areas and file APIs for Android work unitedly to give you the full power of deciding where you want to store what. If you guys like what you saw, please like this video, share this video, let us know your thoughts in the comment boxes below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video where we start talking about SQLite databases and Android. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Have